cha anakriya. So the blessed Lord said, Krishna says to Arjun, he who does the work which he ought to do without seeking its fruit, he is the samnyāsin, which is a man of renunciation. He is a yogi, not one who does not light the sacred fire and performs no rites. So the Supreme Being begins by describing karma yoga. This verse shows that a sannyasi, which is a man of renunciation, and a yogi, who is a man of action, are different. A person that does not light the sacred fire can't be called a sannyasi, and neither can the person who does not perform any activities. Who is a sannyasi? Shri Krishna shows us in two ways. The first is one who does not seek the fruit of karmas. That's the first one described here. This is the key message of the Gita. Leave the wish for the fruit of karmas, of actions. Karma kiye ja, phal ki icha mat kar re insan, yahi Gita ka gnan. Keep performing actions, but do not wish for their fruits. This is the very wisdom of the Gita. You just perform actions and this is it. Do not wish for the fruits of actions. Shri Krishna says this over and over again. When the attractions for fruits itself becomes a fruit, or when the actions for fruits goes away, then actions become bliss, which is the biggest fruit of all. Actions for fruits, done for the intention of the fruits in mind, never become fulfilled. If you now have an attraction, and if you go towards it, then the satisfaction goes further away. If you then go towards another attraction, then your satisfaction goes even further away. Attraction for fruits can never be satisfied, and while attraction for fruits is not satisfied, then a person can never be happy. What attraction for fruits does is that it creates a sense of incompleteness inside human beings. And while this state of incompleteness is there, a person can never be happy. We say over and over again that attraction to fruits leads to sorrows. There is a logical explanation that attraction for fruits keeps a person's sense of happiness further and further away. And that is why a person considers herself incomplete. The Gita says that you should perform karmas, karmanya adhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. An ordinary person can't understand what Shri Krishna is trying to say here. He says that you should row the boat, but you shouldn't worry about the shore. The reason why we sit on the boat is so that we can reach the shore on the other side. Shri Krishna tells us to forget about the shore on the other side. This is because while you don't forget the shore on the other side, then it acts as a desire and a difficulty for us because our attention stays only with the shore on the other side. Now, what if the situation occurs when there's no shore at all and all the other on the other side, and the shore keeps appearing further and further away? This person will get tired as a result of frustration after frustration. But if he decides in his mind that he doesn't want to get off at any shore on the other side, then during that moment he forgets about the shore, then the shore will come close to him because the shore is wherever he is. Then the shore won't remain far away. The meaning of this is as soon as attraction for the fruits goes away, at that moment, that very being, in that very existence, the fruits come. And the fruits don't stay far away. While there's an attraction for the fruits, then you are here and the fruit is far away. There is a distance between you and the fruit, be it a time, a place, or a person. But the moment when the attraction for the fruits goes away, this distance falls away. All sorrows are there as a result of this distance. If there's a nice watch on a person's wrist, and you have attraction towards that watch, then there's a distance between you and the watch. And while you don't find that watch, you'll have sorrows. But if you think that you don't want the watch, and you don't have a wish for the watch, then there's no distance between you and the watch. And because there's no distance, you are happy. That's what Shri Krishna is saying here. A sannyasi has to reach the state of bliss, and therefore if a person gets swayed by such small things, then how can this person reach this state of bliss? When can you attain to it? Do not have an attraction for the fruits of actions. The second point is that not having an attraction for the fruits of actions is very important in understanding the 6th chapter and in performing meditation. We talked a lot about not having an attraction for the fruits of actions in the 2nd, 3rd and 4th chapters of the Gita, but now we will go deeper into this. If you look at it spiritually, it's not possible to give up actions. Spiritually, the question of whether or not I should perform actions is a futile question. This is because you cannot go without performing actions. Sharira yatra vichate na prashitye karmana. Even the body cannot be maintained without doing actions. If the question arises about whether you should perform actions or not, Shri Krishna says in this 6th chapter that this question is futile. because you cannot go without performing actions. The question should be about whether you keep the fruit of actions or not. This is the reason for which Sri Krishna says in this verse that you should not be attracted to the fruits of action. You will have to perform actions. Even if you're sitting down doing nothing, then even the act of sitting down is an action. Therefore, the question of whether you should perform actions or not is a futile question, because a human being cannot go without performing actions. The decision you have to make is whether you keep the fruits of actions you're performing or not for yourself. Should you become attracted to the fruits of actions or not? Shri Krishna says here that you should not seek the fruits of actions. You should renounce the fruits of actions. You should perform actions for a divine purpose. If you keep the fruits of actions for yourself, then they'll become material enjoyments, whereas if you dedicate the fruits of actions for a divine purpose, then they become divine. There are two types of fruits to karmas, actions. There's drashya fruits of actions and adrashya fruits of actions. The first type of these fruits are ones that you can see when you're performing actions, and then they're drashya. For example, I say that I work for 1 month and I get my salary on the first day of the next month. The salary that you get is a drashya fruit of action. If you think that you performed a very good deed and people will give you respect, this is a drashya fruit of action. If you get a letter of appreciation and you frame it and you put it on the wall in your house, this is a drashya fruit of action. People applauded you. This is a drashya fruit of action. The second type of these fruits, everything else, is adrashya fruit of action. Sins and punyas, which are the opposite of sins, which has no translation in English, which are the good things, are adrashya. It is possible that someone performs an action that leads to people giving them a round of applause, but in God's court it's regarded as a sin. It could be possible that someone performs an action that leads to people disrespecting him, and yet the Supreme Being says about that person that he'll glorify that person. This can happen. There are these two fruits of actions, drashya fruits of actions and adrashya fruits of actions. In the last verse of the 5th chapter, Shri Krishna was talking about leaving drashya fruits of karmas, because a person cannot leave adrashya fruits of action. You can leave fruits that you can see, but you can't leave fruits that you can't see. It is impossible. Shri Krishna says in chapter 5 verse 15, Nalate kashyapitam nechava suktam vidu. The all-pervading spirit does not take on the sin or the merit of any. The human being will have to face the consequences of his or her actions. Adrashya fruits are those that nobody else can take. If God cannot take them, then how can we get rid of them? Therefore, we can only leave one type of fruits, that's drashya fruits. And all these illusions and webs of karmas are caused by drashya fruits of actions. If we try to think about it a little, let's say our fictional character, Kachalal, he's doing a job at an office for a month, and the first day of each month, he goes back with a salary of £5,000. Out of the £5,000, he gives £500 to a servant working in his house. The servant goes home with the money and uses it to help others. This whole cycle is created. Out of this £5,000, Kachalal pays £1,000 for goods at shops. The retailers at these shops pay this money to their own employees. These employees go out and spend the money somewhere else. These drashya fruits go from one person's hands to another person's hands. What is the driving force? The circle of this whole world runs because of this, the drashya fruits of karmas. Kachalal cannot see adrashya fruits of karma himself, as he does not even know about them because he is an ordinary person. If he were to become spiritually advanced, then he'll realize that the reason why something happened in his life is as a fruit of something he did earlier. For drashya fruits, you really have to think about them deeply, whereas drashya fruits are really nice because we can see them right in front of us. They are within the limits of your senses. The circle of this world is running as a result of this drashya fruits. In that circle, you only get bliss when these fruits are used for a divine purpose. The meaning of this is that every action that a person performs leads to fruits, and he uses those fruits for a divine purpose, for the development of society and for his spiritual advancement for the Supreme Soul. What if every person in the world did this? And there would be bliss and happiness all over the world. Pandit Shripad Damodar Satvarkaji has expressed a very big sadness in his commentary that 5,000 years ago, Shri Krishna gave such an effective message in the scripture, yet Since those 5,000 years, these consequences cannot be seen in Indian society. Let us forget the world for a moment. We call India the country where Shri Krishna was born, making India a pure land, and we're such a complete and divine form of God, such as Shri Krishna became manifest. Everyone celebrates, applauds, and gets a lot of happiness when the name of Shri Krishna is said. We all do worship of Shri Krishna. Why then is this guidance on how to achieve the highest state in one's life described by Shri Krishna in his message not seen in Indian society in the last 5,000 years? It's not as if it's not completely there. Some people do work for the divine, manage to reach that state, but the majority of people perform actions because they seek the fruits of actions. You should not be attracted to the fruits of actions. Seeking the fruits of actions results in one using the fruits of actions for material enjoyment, and renouncing the fruits of actions results in one using the fruits of actions for divine purposes. Renouncing the fruits of actions and using them for divine purposes is a way of attaining liberation. The fruits of actions are yours and for you. This is the attitude of the world. This is what we call Maya, illusion. Who knows what Maya is? What's Maya? You know? In the Ramcharitmanas, Tulsidas wrote, Ma arum or tor te Maya. Me and mine, you and yours, this is called Maya, illusion. If someone thinks that they perform the karma action themselves and regard the fruit of actions as themselves, then this mine and thine is Maya. This is the state of the world. When this action is yours, but the fruit is the supreme souls of societies, then you light what it's called here, the sacrificial fire. This is the message of the Gita. If the fruits of actions are given up for collective purposes, then the entire society can perform actions with this attitude of sacrifice. Shri Krishna describes a sannyasi and a yogi in this verse. This verse says that a sannyasi or yogi is someone who does not seek the fruits of actions. A materialist, on the other hand, seeks the fruits of actions. He uses the fruits of actions for his own material enjoyment. The second thing that Shri Krishna describes in this verse is doing the work that ought to be done. Such a person is a sannyasi and a yogi. Such a person does not seek the fruits of actions, but still keeps performing his duty. This is a sannyasi and a yogi. A materialist, on the other hand, does two things that are opposed to this. Firstly, one who does the work that he does not ought to do is a materialist. He does not follow his duty. Such a person is not a yogi, according in the view of Shri Krishna. Secondly, one who performs work which he ought not to do is also a materialist. He does work which he ought not to do. You have a definition of a sannyasi right in front of you, one who performs the work which he ought to do. The two opposites of this are not doing the work which one ought to do, or doing the work which one ought not to do. This is what a materialistic person does. He does not perform the beautiful works that he ought to do, but he performs the wrong works that he ought not to do. This is the very name of a materialist. This is what we call Kali. The majority of people are like this. When you look at today's society, you see the majority of people are not sannyasis or yogis because they're not doing what they ought to do, and they're doing what they ought not to do. This is what we see in society, and that's why there's this consequence of mental turbulence, instability, insecurity, and sorrow. Do the people of the world today know what's good for them? Do they know what's right? They do know. They even know that they're doing something wrong, and they say we're doing something wrong. In the Mahabharata, Dhruv said it nicely, Janam mi dharmam nacha prabhuti, janami adharma nacha nivruti, kena viparna dishitena. I know what righteousness is, and I know what I ought to do, but I don't do this. I know what unrighteousness is, but I do not stop myself from doing this. This is the very name of a materialist. At the time of the Mahabharata, there was only one Duryodhana. Today, each and every person in the world has a bit of Duryodhana in them. Do we not know what we ought to do? Do we not know our duty? Do we know that we should practice devotion, perform worship, practice meditation, study nice scriptures? Everyone knows this, but how many people are there to do these things? On the other hand, people know if they're doing something wrong and think that they're doing something wrong. If someone goes to the income tax office and bribes the official with a £50 note, then both the giver and the taker know that what is being done is wrong. But how many people would refrain from doing this? They say to let this go, and if they give the £50 bribe, then they'll be comfortable. It is out of this comfort that all the problems start. This is the same nature of Duryodhana, a materialist. How can such a person become a sannyasi? How can such a person become a yogi? People do so many wrong things in their lives. They know what they're doing is wrong, and yet they don't refrain from doing it. People become addicted because of the littlest things. Yoga is so close to us, yet we are so far away from yoga. You must understand this. I'll repeat the sentence. Yoga is so close to us, yet we are so far away from yoga. We must think about this. A person is smoking cigarettes, and we may ask him why he's smoking. We tell him this and that his lungs are being ruined and his whole body is being damaged. We ask why he still smokes. If he falls down, then it doesn't make a difference to you, but his smoking is also injurious to your health. Why is he making us passive smokers? People are even eating many types of tobacco. We tell them to stop and they just say, let it be. All these people know what they're doing is wrong, yet they don't refrain from doing it. This is the very name of Kali. This is the very name of a materialist. This is Duryodhan. The name changes, but the behavior is exactly the same. Then who is a sannyasi, a man of renunciation? Shri Krishna says that a person who does not light the sacrificial fire is not a sannyasi. We can look at this in two ways. If we look at it in terms of rituals and traditions, both in ancient times and now, when someone takes the vow as a sannyasi who renounces, a man of renunciation, then he does not need to light the sacrificial fire to develop, even though he's entered a worldly life, to become an Agnihotri. This was, I'll explain it in detail, this was the wish that led to him being married. When a man and a woman get married, then their fire is a witness, and they circle the fire. I think it's 4 times, right? 4 times. Those who have walked around the fire circle 4 times did so not to blow off the fire, but to bring the fire home. The fire was known as Grahagni. It represented a yagna. People did not try to blow off the fire, they had to look after the fire. The husband and wife go on a daily basis making oblations to the fire, so this fire could stay with them throughout their lives. Then if one of them two died, then the child would walk around the same fire. At that time there was a mantra, Agnina Sutaparya, O fire, show us the way. The reason for this is that they entered into their worldly lives with the fire as a witness, and this fire has been in front of them throughout their entire worldly lives as a witness to each and every action they've performed. Now for the way ahead, we need the fire to show us the way. This was a mantra. This is the last mantra of the 14th chapter of the Shuklaji and the 18th chapter of the Isha Upanishad. Now it doesn't so happen when a married couple are circling the fire, they keep looking around. If a husband feels that his eyes are burning, then someone comes and takes him away. Now the fire has gone outside and who knows who will look at it. The fire gets blown off. There's no longer a fire lit in people's houses. In ancient times, when each and every person kept a fire inside their houses, this fire of sacrifices, then when the person became a sannyasi, he would leave this fire and go. This fire would be a witness to his good deeds. Then he had no bondages. If the fire would have to be looked after every day and was given oblations, then this would be difficult because he would have to go on his way. Sadhus are always on their way. If someone becomes a sannyasi, then how many difficulties would they get carrying the fire everywhere with them? And if someone becomes a witness to his own actions, then why would he need another witness to his actions? We are unable to become witnesses to our own actions because we desire the fruits of actions. Therefore, whenever we need the fruits of actions, we need a witness. If we give someone £500, then we need £500 from somewhere else. Then that is why we give it with a witness there. If you give this £500 and don't want anything back, then what need would you have for a witness? In the same way, if you perform actions and wish for their fruits, then you need some witness, be it a fire, a lamp or a flame. If someone doesn't want this fruit of actions, then he doesn't need a witness. Then he has no bondages. Here, Shri Krishna is saying that it's not as if the person who gives up the fire is a sannyasi. This is one meaning. The second meaning, if someone wants to look at it by its symbolic meaning, then thinkers say that at the time when the Gita was said, the fire was a symbol of civilization. It symbolized culture. This is because in prehistoric times, human beings were like animals. Fire was very instrumental in taking human beings away from animalism to being humans. In the development of human civilization, the discovery of fire was a very important step. Imagine for a second what human life would be like if there was no fire. People would live like animals and eat raw foods. If there was no fire, then where would they cook food? People would eat raw foods, for example fruits, wherever they ate. Then human beings got very scared of violent animals. Human beings lived in caves, but although human beings could not smell animals, those animals could smell human beings. Tigers, lions, dogs recognize things from their smell. They can then tell by the smell if a human being is hiding somewhere. They did not need to see them, they can just tell by the smell. Such human beings were very vulnerable. Two great things happened after fire was discovered. The very first thing was that human beings became secure. In ancient times, there were about 50 to 70 human beings living together in a group, and that when they would all go to sleep at night, they would light the fire around them. Because they lit this fire, the violent animals would become scared of this fire. Humans got this security from the fire. After security, then there's a lot of advancement and development in society. While a person is not secure, then how can culture develop? Therefore, the first thing that human beings got from fire was security. Then, human beings would cook food from fire and do many other things from fire. Human activity increased. Before, human beings would go to sleep when the sun set, and now, if they had a fire, they could light it after sunset and carry on their activities after it got dark. They would gather meat throughout the day, then they would create drums out of the animal skin, and music came from there. All the human developments of ancient times happened indirectly as a result of fire. Fire has helped human beings a lot. Shri Krishna is therefore symbolically trying to say that one should not believe that one who leaves culture development and civilization is a sannyasi. If Shri Krishna was saying the Gita in today's times, then instead of saying one who does not like the sacrificial fire, he would say that one who does not use machines is not a sannyasi. What fire did 5,000 or 10,000 years ago is now being done by machines. Scientists have carried out experiments and have invented these things. This is not possible. Clothes we wear are made out of machines. When you wake up in the morning and go to the bathroom and pick up a toothbrush, then this toothbrush has been made from machines. The toothpaste we apply on a toothbrush has been made from machines. The soap we use to bath has been made by machines. Everything is machine made. If someone in today's time says that he doesn't use machines, then he just goes back 5,000 years in time. Does he therefore become a sannyasi because of this? No. This is the symbolic meaning of when Shri Krishna says that one who does not like the sacrificial fire is not a sannyasi. Shri Krishna also says in this verse that a person who performs no rites is not a sannyasi. A person who does not do any work is not a sannyasi. A person who gives up actions is not a sannyasi. A person who gives up the fruits of actions is called a sannyasi. The fruits of actions are very powerful. Every fruit of actions has a potentiality. They have a power inside them. But if that power is only there if a person does not wish for the fruits of actions. If we were to take a simple example, imagine there's a £100 note in your pocket. This £100 note is very powerful. You buy so many things with this £100 note. You can buy, let's say, kilograms of rice. You can buy lots and lots of clothes. You can go with a person to see many films at the cinema. You can go to eat at a classy hotel. Guruji says that he won't know because he's never gone there. But people tell me not to go there. Can a person go on his own? Not. But whenever you look, then you see hundreds and hundreds of people going there. Anyway, this £100 note has a lot of power behind it. It only has a lot of power when it's in our pocket. Its potentiality is so much and you have so much choice, but if you decide at one moment that you wish to use that £100 note to go and see lots of films, then you buy those tickets and that £100 note has gone and the ticket has come into your hands. Now the power in that £100 note has gone. The £100 note is very powerful while it is not used. There are many options. As soon as you decide you wish to spend that £100 note in order to buy film, tickets or whatever, then it's finished and you have closed the door on all other options. Now the note has become very small. In the same way, while the karmas, actions we perform, do not have a label of attraction towards the fruit of actions, then they have a lot of potentiality. They have so much potential because Shri Krishna says in chapter 2 verse 40, Asya dharmasya svarupasya dharmasya trapate mahapayat. Even little of this righteousness, dharma, saves from great fear. Even of this little of this righteousness can be very useful to us, but only if there is no attachment to the fruits of actions. You can only draw a check once. Once you have it drawn, you've got the check and your money's gone and it's finished. You can't use it again. Every action of ours is a blank check and the signatory is God. While we don't stop actions, then God is bound. God has created the business of actions and karmas. If we keep doing good deeds and don't stop them, then we keep gathering these blank checks from God. They're God's. Leave the choice to Him. If you do this, then He will make the payment and not you. I tell you that you will always benefit from this. We only make a loss when we make the payment. We create our own losses. Let God make the payment. This is because a person thinks according to his nature. The Supreme Soul thinks according to the Supreme Soul's way, and we think in our own way. Our thoughts are so small, and God's thoughts are so great. This is how God thinks. Leave it to Him. A person who does this is the biggest of all sannyasis. When we keep the attraction of fruits of karmas, and we have a wish for the fruits, then we think that we are gaining something. But spiritual people will say that you're making a very big loss here. Leave the responsibility for fruits in God's hands. Then you become a person who does not seek for the fruits of karmas. Next verse.